Hi, everyone. It's really nice to be here. I see a lot of women interested in learning about other women making games, which is amazing. A little bit about myself. I started Learn District last year with my husband and two other friends who ended up becoming lead designer and lead writer. We went to Kickstarter last year for our first game, which is going to be out this year. And towards I want to say the beginning of this year, we started thinking about making a second game, which is when I started my hunt for the female developer who was going to be on our team. I spent, I want to say 2 months. I went to all the job boards. I graduated MIT, so I was like, I'm sure I can find one MIT girl who would want to join an alumni-started company, right? Nope, they all want to go work for tech companies. Like Google's taking them, Microsoft's taking them. No one wants to come work in games, and especially at indie game development. Like it's pretty small, it's pretty niche. So I started asking myself, why were there no women in games? Are women or girls not playing games? I don't think that's true at all. Like you walk around the mall, you see all these girls on their phones, they have apps, they have games, they're playing it, they know what's out there. It's interesting to them. But somewhere along the line, I think around middle to high school age, it stops being cool to play games, right? I think we all remember, have fond memories of growing up with DSs, but how many of us have a DS in our bag right now? None of us. So that led me to thinking, like, how do I keep them engaged in the games industry? How do I keep it close to them? And it struck me, where do kids go over the summer? Summer camps. Let's do a 1 week, 5-day, whatever fun camp where we can have these girls half play, half make, half talk, but just stay engaged in hey, there are other options. If you like games, you can actually work in games. Here are some great role models for you to look at. We brought in, women like Kelly Santiago, and we're like, look at her life story. This is what she's been doing. She's interested in games, and she works in it, and she's pretty successful, so it's actually viable. But going back, this is sort of our promo video for the camp that we showed, and actually had a couple of parents cry on, so I would get my napkins out. So winding back to the cannot and the can, that's kind of where we started seeing a lot of the girls that came in. The first question we asked them, do you think you can make a game in 3 weeks? Not one girl thought she could make a game in 1 week, in 3 weeks. Not one, not two, not three. We actually had them sit down and talk about game jams, how people make games in 24, 48 hours. And the concept just seemed like impossible to them. Like, I've never programmed before. How am I going to do this? So to tell you a little bit about the way we structured the program, the first week was a little introduction into Stencil, Unity. We had about 40 girls between 9 to 16 years old, a 5-to-1 student-to-counselor ratio because we wanted to have someone dedicated to every student who would have questions, and they had a lot of questions. So we started out with game design. And the most basic thing they had to fill out was a design document. So answer questions like, what are your game mechanics? What's your player doing? What are the characters? What genre is this game? We had about 90% of the students work in Stencil, and 10% who were the advanced kids who had some programming background or were a little ambitious. We actually had them work in Unity, which I'm so proud of because they actually finished a game in Unity. These are 13-year-olds that we're talking about. So the other thing that I was really excited about was we wanted them to get a feel for indie development, which is, because that's what we are. So we wanted to group them together into their teams and have an artist come in and say, hey, for the most part, when developers get together, they contract artists or they contract musicians. So you're going to do that for your game. We brought in, a bunch of great artists, some with backgrounds from like Disney, RISD, Academy of Arts. So some fantastic people came in. And the girls had to pitch their games to them and talk a little bit more about what kind of aesthetics they wanted, whether it was going to be pink and fluffy or very hardcore. You're going to see some of it soon. Same thing with music. Like they had to list out every sound effect. So it's not just this guy punches. Does he have multiple types of punches? Like they actually had to think about every minute detail and list it out, because if it's not on the list, the contractor's not going to make it for you. And those are real consequences. Like some games were missing stuff, and it was sad, but we made sure that they knew this was the consequence of what they did. And finally, we wanted to take them out, on fun days. So we went to Microsoft, Google, Double Fine, which was amazing. We literally sat around Double Fine's couches and played games with them. So it was pretty great. My favorite day of the camp, demo day. We actually had the girls pitch to our judges, which included Tim Schafer and Kelly Santiago, Tracy Fullerton, Shazia, who's actually, not in the crowd anymore, from Google Play. The idea was to give them confidence to talk about their game. Your game is important to you. You made this was your idea. You need to be able to talk about this. You need to be able to tell people why it matters. Why should they play it? Because at the end of the day, the goal for the camp, for the girls to be making these games, was not just to learn how to make games, but also to make games that they would be proud of, make games that they could possibly make money out of, because we wanted them to start thinking like entrepreneurs, right? And a little bit more at the end about that. We had a little over 300 people attend. It was fantastic. There's still some news articles about it out there. It was a pretty fun day. So I don't think I even need this slide, because if I look at myself, it's me and 8 guys in my studio, and that gets old really fast. And that's the reality. It's about 10% women for half of the consumer base. So this is something that actually made me cry. These are 2 parents who wrote to me. Actually, there's several that wrote to me, but these 2 stood out to me because the first one says, she came home and she actually used the words that we said at the camp. Like that's how much like a sponge they were. They're like, I want to better understand the market. And those are my words. And I was like, oh my God, they memorized my words and they're going to use those words. And I talk like a business person. So good or bad, I don't know. But now she's talking about market. And she's also, there's another girl talking about working for a cool company, and she feels lucky to be in the Bay Area, which is huge because I didn't expect them to make that observation at all. Like we talked about, there's all these game companies, there's these tech companies, you should, talk to people who work there. And the part about being taken seriously by adults, honestly, that came as a surprise because I've never taught kids that age. Middle school, 9, 10-year-old girls, I've never taught that age. I taught maybe high school or college girls. And those girls you do take more seriously. You treat them like adults. So it came as second nature, but to them it felt special because I think everyone talks down to, like a 10-year-old. You don't expect them to understand a lot of things, and the reality is they understand a lot more. So that was great. I don't know how we're going to replicate that across our camps. This happened because my entire staff was untrained to teach kids, so they treated everyone like adults. Maybe we'll keep them that way. One thing, the word safe environment came out a lot from the parents. It's not something that we planned again. No idea is a bad idea. There's no idea that's a bad idea, especially in a brainstorming session. Like that's the first thing we said. If you have an idea, if you want this unicorn to fly or swim or have fins, That's great. Let's do it. That's fine. You can do it. There's no problem with that. So having that sort of support really led them to think big. And I want to talk a little bit about these are the voices that I heard personally that I didn't know existed. A lot of the girls, again, are growing up among video games. They're growing up among apps, DSs, PlayStations, Xboxes. It's a huge industry. They can't run away from it, right? So naturally, they develop very strong opinions. We had, among 40 girls, we had 10 Minecraft lovers and 30 Minecraft haters. I did not expect that. I expected more like, everyone loves Minecraft, right? Nope, not true. A lot of people hate, like, they don't even want to see it. They don't understand why it exists. The girls are very influenced by what they play. So if they're playing a lot of mobile games, that's what they think games look like. If they're playing a lot of platformers, that's what they think games look like. That sort of made me stand back because I'm making games that are for kind of close to that demographic, and I'm thinking the games I make that they end up playing are going to influence the games that they grow up making. So it's important for us as developers to make games that impact them positively, that make them think, that I guess provide diversity to their opinion too. The super passionate and vocal, oh my gosh, we actually had a lot of arguing. The second week was really, really painful because they actually had to come up with their design document that was going to be executed at the end with their developers. And yeah, there were a lot of divided opinions. I expected girls to be a little bit, again, like stereotyping myself, I'm saying, to be a little bit more compromising because they'd be like, well, everyone wants to do this, so I'm just gonna be quiet. But no, if there's 5 girls who wanna do this and you're the 6th girl and you don't like it, she would not take it. She'd be like, no, I don't like this. Which was great. We had 2 girls that I wanna talk about. One of them who was super shy first week, looked at the ground the whole time. You know, you tried to talk to her, she would respond, but she would be looking at the ground. Second week, we had a programming challenge that she was able to accomplish, and the third week, she would not stop talking because now she knew she could do something. And to see that transformation in just 6 days, it was really surprising because as an adult, how often does that happen to you? You know, it takes forever for us to change our opinions, to change our behavior, to adapt to anything, but these kids move really fast. This is something that took me a while to think about because I didn't know how to phrase it. We had 5 games come out of our camp. All 5 have a really deep story, which you might not even see in the game because it's a prototype, but their design documents are like 10 pages long, and the character has a background, and there was a reason why Ben the Bread is really mad at Sugar Lord, because Sugar Lord is destroying the kids' teeth. Actually educational. There's a reason why, like on the left, the character Wendy, she actually is an archaeologist, but as a kid she wanted to be a geologist, and her whole transformations in her design document, which has nothing to do with gameplay, but it's important to know who Wendy is. You know, why is she going around digging holes? And Nico, the little Greek boy who's fighting Greek gods, Hades, I think over there, yeah. Reason why he's mad is because Hades destroyed his village. Why did he destroy his village? Well, gods are vain. There's actually a reason. These girls are very empathetic. Like the first thing they wanted to think about was, when you're playing the game, what do you feel? What do the colors make me feel? And this is something we didn't train them on because 10 days is not long enough to make someone empathetic, right? The game on the right actually surprised everyone because it tells a story of a little girl who thinks the world is a very magical, safe and happy place. But it turns out that there's a lot of evil forces hidden, like the unicorn on the top actually becomes an evil unicorn at the bottom once she passes through. So the story was, you don't really know what's happening until you grow up. And I was just surprised. I was like, you guys are 14, what are you talking about? Well, when I was 10, I thought when people did this, it meant this, but it's actually, you know, there's a lot of people trying to stop us from doing things, and I don't like it. So, very serious game. The music's great, the art's great, but it's a very serious background story. It actually makes you sad about that they think about these things. The one on the left was inspired by popping bubble wrap. If you ask them why they made that game, it's literally just popping bubbles. There's Fluffles the dragon who breeds colorful bubbles, and you can't pop the one that's colored on the right, because that's his favorite color, and he changes his mind every so often. And if you ask them why they came up with it, it's because, well, we all love popping bubbles. So it comes directly from an experience. It's not something, they didn't sit down and say, what genre is my game going to be about? Is it a platformer? Is it top-down? They first thought about the experience, which taught me a lot, because that's not how I approach games. Now I will. It was great. This was amazing. They actually went out of their way to break stereotypes. Everyone knows about the damsel in distress. Well, we don't want a prince rescuing a princess. We want a girl like us rescuing a princess. I'm like, oh, so there's still a princess in distress, right? Well, at least there's some constants. So some constants are good. Yeah, so they actively decided to have a girl who was an archaeologist, who was very headstrong. She actually left her family to go on this quest because someone asked her for help. And she couldn't help herself. She was like, yeah, I'll help you because it involves digging. Heroic male warrior. This was a big one because when these girls came up with the 10-year-old boy fighting the gods, and I was like, are you sure you want him to be 10 years old? He has no superpowers. They're like, well, he's normal like us. And I was like, why is he not a girl? Well, because we know every other girl in this camp is making a story with a girl. So they were very aware of what the stereotype would be, what people would think when they present their game. Notable trends, lots of unicorns. Oh my God, this unicorn, they actually named him Jeffy the Fat Fluffy Unicorn. And this is the game that actually talks about how difficult it is to grow up. But there's fat fluffy unicorns in it. So you can have a very serious game with a lot of non-serious trends in it, which is great because generally when we think serious, we think very, very gray, very, serious. But you can actually have fun with serious things. But getting serious now. The games were gender neutral, which I was really amazed about. Like, when we talked to them about, who is this game for? Oh, it's for everybody. They wouldn't say it's for a girl my age. It's for everybody. Anybody can enjoy this game because they like popping bubbles. Anybody can enjoy this game because it teaches you Greek mythology or because it's funny. Oh. The second one, not afraid to ask difficult questions. Like, Nico, the Greek boy, is fighting gods who are vain because vanity is a bad thing. And they want to teach that important lesson in this game. And you can fight gods. Like, that's really ambitious. Vain gods, and you should go for it, no matter what your age. If you're a girl, you want to tell a story about how difficult it is growing up, yeah, go for it in a game. They didn't want it to be just a fun experience. They wanted it to tell a story, to have a message at the end. And finally, character depth. Every character, like this girl, Emily, grew up and she was actually apparently beaten up. So there's a whole story behind it. You'll never see it in the game because it's a prototype at this point. But when I saw these girls talking about their game, it was just almost shocking. Like, why do you want her to be beaten up? Well, we want to tell the story of all these girls who are abused when they grow up. We want to tell the story about the girls who think, when people talk to them, they are who they are, but they're really not. So we want them to be careful. We want them to think before they befriend someone and things like that. So lots of depth. And finally, it's been a crazy year. Like, I can't even start. Girls Make Games started out as a tweet in April this year, end of April 29th to be specific, where I said, oh my gosh, I think I'm gonna just do a small camp that's 5 days long. I'll get 10 girls and I'll see how it goes. And nobody would have it. They were like, why just 10 girls? Why just one city? So now we're actually going to be in 15 cities this year, teaching a little over 500 girls. We've been supported by Google, Blizzard, Rovio, whoever you name it. Like, everyone reached out to us and said, you have to make this happen. What do you need? Do you need resources? Do you need money? Do you need venues? We'll help you with everything. And this is the game that actually won grand prize at our demo day. It's on Kickstarter. The girls decided to raise money so they could pay us to develop the game. Us, the artists, the musicians, the pure indie style. So I would encourage you to check it out. I think this morning it was at 12K. Now we'll take any questions that you guys might have. Yes. Oh, thank you. Yes.
Hi. Firstly, oh my God, I wish this existed when I was that age.
Thank you.
No one said I couldn't be a geek. I think everyone expected me to be one, but I had nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, like, do the kids have any support to continue building their skills after the camp?
Yeah, that's a great question. This came up towards the last week as camp was ended. A lot of parents worked for us instead. They went to schools. They went to the principals and said, I want this camp to start a club, and we will support it. I'll be the volunteer to take care of it. So we're actually, this fall, we're launching in 3 Bay Area schools as, all year round after school clubs, where the girls will continue making games, talking about it, and we'll do little game jams, we'll do field trips, the same thing. But the idea is to keep them keeping them engaged in making games and having a safe place, like you said, being a geek. We actually had 2 girls who came in saying, well, I'm an athlete now, so I hang out with the cool crowd. But I used to play games, but this is cool too now. And I was like, okay, yeah, it is cool. So you don't feel like a dork. She's like, no, people here are cool. So that was nice. Anyone else?
First of all, as you know, I'm a big fan of the initiative. I think it's interesting that we heard in one of our earlier sessions, Sean with Upper One, and they were talking about Never Alone. They talked about the creative team that they assembled, and that they were all men who had worked in AAA development, and a lot of them worked in like super violent type of action games, but there was one thing that they all had in common. They all had daughters, and that they were all sort of like, I'm ready to stop doing this and actually start working on something that's meaningful and that's more, that's really something that, they could be proud of, for their kids to play, but also I think they would reinforce positive themes. I don't want to take the conversation too dark, but I guess as a father of a daughter myself and a former game developer, one of the things that I constantly think about is, and it seems like every week there's another story about the just awful behavior, of some people in the industry and what women have to put up with. Is that something, it seems like something you certainly wouldn't want to, put in front of kids now, but how do you deal with that, knowing that if they get enthusiastic about making games, at some point they may have to encounter this?
I think the girls that attended our camp already encountered a whole lot of it in their schools, because if I ask them, who are your game buddies, they're like, it's either boys or nobody. It's nobody because not enough girls in my class play games, or it's boys, but they don't invite me to their parties, but when we go to school we talk about it. So we touched a little bit on that, but they are facing, with the IGN article that just came out, there were like 400 comments on it, and about, I want to say a third were really stuff that I wish the girls hadn't seen, but they did see it, and we talked about it, and we said, hey, you're going to get this, your Kickstarter's out there, people are going to talk about it, and they were fine with it. They were like, well, but look at everyone else, they're so happy for what we're doing, and they support us, and so I think they're young enough that they're focusing on the positives, and they're not asking, how do we fix this? How do we make them quiet? But I think with more and more, like I'm talking hundreds of girls this year, and I'm talking thousands of girls next year, and we just started talking about formalizing Girls Make Games as a nonprofit that reaches millions of girls. So we are talking millions of girls making games. This is going to change. It's just a matter of time. And if you have support from a million peers, I think we'll get there. Anything else?
One of my friends was one of the artists that came in, and so she told me about this, and unfortunately I didn't know about it until it was over.
Was it Christine?
Yeah, Christine.
Yeah, nice.
And so I guess I was kind of wondering, like, for upcoming camps, like, how can we get involved with the future camps? Like, are you looking for counselors?
Yeah, we're always looking. Oh my gosh, like my staff, my Learn District staff who are the game developers, they're like, we're done. you have to hire people because we want to make games too, not just teach people how to make games. So I'm actually actively looking for women passionate about teaching other girls how to make games. So please, our website's girlsmakegames.com. You can contact me directly. I should have put my email up there, but it's just Laila@learndistrict.com. So it's really easy to find me. And thank you so much.